Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining episode 4 of the TLDR by N2W. And today we have quite an interesting episode, but it's a really important one, mainly because we're talking about one of the key capabilities of N2Ws's product, our ability to do archiving, which can save you tremendous amounts of money if you're using it in a smart way. And today you're going to learn how. The way that we wanted to share this with you and kind of do this episode kind of goes back to, again, me being kind of the new guy here on the team. And, I'm trying to look at everything pretty much with some fresh set of eyes. So, we're going to walk you through a case study that we did. Not a case study, it was actually a deal or somewhat of a renewal with a customer who's been with us for a few years. There was kind of a strategic decision inside the company which tool to choose for their cloud native environment. And obviously it was us with, no surprise, AWS Backup. And I want to tell you that story. I'm going to use the simulation, and the numbers are, very much in proximity, are very much almost accurate to the case. This will kind of lead us into what's the difference between N2W and AWS Backup when it comes to archiving and how you save money. And obviously, the most important part is Sebastian will walk us through the demo and show you guys how you can actually leverage it with your environment. Basically, as I mentioned, the customer came to us and said, okay, we kind of want to do a comparison head-to-head between you and AWS Backup. And we said, okay, fine. So let's start with the basics. We have a license cost. And this customer is an enterprise customer, so kind of a higher tier customer. And that's pretty much our annual cost. So everything that you're going to see on the screen is annual. And obviously, AWS is a free tool. So the cost is 0 for the license. However, when we basically planned, or they planned, what they're going to be using AWS Backup for on an annual basis, this is the total cost of ownership for AWS Backup, about $93K of storage data that they're going to keep and archive. And on the other hand, on the N2WS side, it totaled to $37K. That's a 47% cost saving, which is pretty significant. And we're going to talk about it in a second, even deeper, is the fact that AWS Backup is using standard S3 tier, where we are using any S3 tier. And to make the illustration even more, clearer, this is how it looks like. Okay, so when you archive the data, essentially the first archive, the first time, both AWS Backup and N2W are doing a full archiving, right? However, when you're doing the second one, N2W is doing only incrementals, while AWS Backup keep doing the full archiving, okay? And this impacts the cost quite tremendously. And it's one of the key differentiators between what we do and AWS Backup are doing. I think now comes the time where we want to go a little bit deeper into the product and show you how this really works, how you can set this up and basically get the advantage of saving that cost. And at the end, what we promised is we have kind of a nice giveaway. Basically, everything that you've seen right now was based out of a very comprehensive Excel file that we've built with the customer. And we kind of templatized it and we turned it into kind of a TCO calculator, which we're going to be giving you guys to use going forward. So stay tuned. I'm going to talk a little bit about that at the end. Sebastian, walk us through the product. Like, how do we do this? How do we achieve this on the product side?
Sure. As you pointed out, I mean, one of the things about this is that sometimes people don't look at the fine print. So within the AWS Backup fine print, it really states that when they perform archives, it's a full every single time. It's not incremental. And that's basically what that feature is supposed to do. It's end of project. You have a server, you want to keep it around for compliance reasons, and that's why you perform a last backup, a last archive. That's why they do it this way. This is why they keep the full every single time. So what I'm going to do is I'll show you how you can actually achieve all of those things that we talked about. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Today, we're going to talk about something near and dear to my heart, which is saving money on AWS storage. Now, I know storage sound probably not as exciting as you would want things to be, but trust me, by the end of this, you'll feel like you just found the last infinity stone and your cloud budget is about to snap into shape. You see what I did there? Well, there's going to be a lot of that today. So let's start with a mind blower. Did you know that storing your AWS EBS or RDS snapshots for 1 month costs the same as archiving those bad boys for an entire year? That's right, 1 month or 12, same price. It's like choosing between renting a room at the Ritz for a day or a cozy Airbnb for the whole year, but it's for your data. When I talk to our customers, hey, what's your longest retention time? The answer is almost always 30 days. But why 30 days? I mean, where's the magic number in that? It's like someone picked it because it sounds good, like how 42 is the answer to life, the universe, and everything, right? But the reality is that 30-day limit usually comes down to one thing. It's cost. That's the max they're willing to pay for backups. Maybe they'd love to keep the data longer. Maybe they dream of an eternal vault of data, but their budget is not going to be on board with that. So now here's the twist. Once you peek under the hood and start looking at the other S3 storage tiers, you're going to find some seriously attractive options. And these tiers are like those cool, off the beaten path Airbnbs that no one told you about. Suddenly, keeping your data longer isn't just a pipe dream, it's very affordable. And when the price is right, you might find yourself thinking, you know what, maybe I do want to keep this data for a while longer because now it won't break the bank. So to keep 1 terabyte of data as EBS snapshots, it'll cost you 5 cents per gig per month. That comes to about $52 and some change per month. However, Glacier Instant Retrieval clocks in at less than half a cent per gig per month. So that's only $12.29 per month. Yes, they do have to keep the data for 90 days. That's a stipulation of Glacier Instant Retrieval. But even if I triple that number, I get to $36.87. I'm still saving a bit over $14 over the course of 3 months. I'm keeping the data longer for less money. That sounds like a win-win. Let me show you how this works. It's actually pretty simple. So within our product, you just go into the policies and then go to a backup policy that you want to archive or you want to save money. Go over here to the lifecycle management tab. Up top, this is where you keep your regular backups. That's your snapshots. And I'm creating daily backups, so that's 14 days. But if I do want to keep the data in a more affordable S3 storage, all I need to do is just simply toggle this box right here, use storage repository. And then I can choose, well, how long do I want to keep that data? So let's say, just like we said, 3 months. Well, then all I have to do at that point, just keep scrolling and you can choose the target repository. Where's this data going to be stored? And it's going to be a real, true S3 bucket. And I can even make that immutable if I want to. And then I can choose which storage tier do I want to use. And I would suggest use Glacier Instant Retrieve. That's really the most attractive storage tier. If you do look at where AWS Backup stores the data, you'll find that they are choosing the most unattractive storage tier possible. Essentially, it's standard S3 with many, many hours of retrieval time thrown in just for good measure. So this will already save you a tremendous amount of money just simply by choosing to store the data into Glacier Instant Retrieve. And as I said, you can, without paying any more, actually save money by keeping the data longer in a real true S3 tier. So now, let me hit you with some backup philosophy. We've all heard of the grandfather, father, son backup methodology, right? If not, don't worry. No actual family drama involved, even though it sounds a little bit like the plot to the next season of Succession. Basically, you got 3 generations of backups. It's the son, that's the daily backup, the father, that's your weekly backup, and the grandfather, that's your monthly backup. Now, here's where the cost-saving magic happens. That daily son backup, keep it handy. But the father and grandfather, archive them. They're like the old wise sages of your backups. You don't need them all the time, but when you do, they're ready, archived, and costing you way less. The way you configure this, I'm going to show you. It's done on the same tab. It's over here under the lifecycle management. Think of that as ever increasingly colder storage. So just now we turned on the use storage repository. So this is my son backups. That's my father backups. And then my grandfather backups, well, you guessed it, they're in the cold storage. So when I turn that on and scroll down to the bottom, once again, I can then choose where I'm going to put those grandfather backups into. I can even put them into deep archive glacier. And deep archive glacier, that's so dirt cheap, you might as well keep it forever, right? That's a terabyte of storage for 99 cents a month. So this is where you then have the option to put your data into ever increasingly colder storage and really start saving money that way. Now, get this, archiving these snapshots doesn't just save money. No. It also could be your disaster recovery hero in disguise. Ever notice how in every disaster movie, they have some secret backup plan that saves the day in the third act? That's, in this case, your archive backups. They're flexible, they're available, and they're ready for action. When disaster strikes, and trust me, in the cloud world, it will, they swoop in to save the day with more flexibility than your regular snapshots. Now, let me explain what I'm talking about. So when I have disaster recovery backups turned on, I can make my backups available in other regions. So in my environment, my production environment is in North Virginia, and I'm choosing my disaster recovery backups. I store them in Ohio because nothing bad ever happens in Ohio. You also have the option to choose cross-account disaster recovery, and there again, you can choose what's your designated disaster recovery region there. All right, so let's play through this. So if I want to perform a recovery from my disaster recovery backup, all I have to do then is I'm going to browse to my backup. I'm going to click on recover, and I can recover the data in the same region where the data originally came from, North Virginia, or I can also recover the data in my designated disaster recovery region. In my case, that's Ohio. I can do the same thing for that DR account. I can get the data from there, but what's going to happen if my boss says, for whatever strange reason, I changed my mind, I want to perform a disaster recovery in Frankfurt? Well, that's too bad because, well, at some point we sat down and we made that decision that the disaster recovery region is Ohio. So I can recover there. I can't change that now retroactively. That's where that ability to archive the data comes in really handy, because we're going to, in a rather elegant way, we're going to query all of the snapshots that are created. We're going to chop them up into data blocks. And that's also how we perform those incremental archives. Now, once these data blocks are then stored in an S3 bucket, we have to put them back together in order to recover the resources. There's nothing to keep us from performing recovery of those blocks in any region because we're always going to have to put them back together. Let me show you how this works. So if I go to my backup monitor and I actually have a policy that I archive, those are my Linux data points that I have. And when I want to recover from that, then I can recover the data in the region where the data originally came from, North Virginia, or I can recover the data in any region. It makes absolutely no difference. And if my boss chooses Frankfurt or Ireland or any other place in the world, I can do that. I can do the same thing. I can recover into any account because, again, we're going to recover those data blocks in any account in any region. So this means that through the archiving, I'm going to save a lot of money, and at the same time, I'm going to gain a lot of flexibility because essentially at that point, my archives can also double as my disaster recovery backups with even more flexibility because I can recover them wherever I feel like recovering them into. Almost done, but not quite. You know how every superhero has a sidekick? Batman has Robin, Han Solo has Chewbacca. In your backups, they can have Azure. Yep. You can take your weekly backups and archive them in another cloud, like Azure. Not only this gives you extra security, like having a bat cave in another city, but you're also spreading the cost around. Plus, if AWS has a bad day, which, let's be honest, happens occasionally, you've got your data safe and sound in Azure. That's better than the new Joker movie and multi-cloud for the win. Let me show you how this works. Again, it's pretty simple. All you have to do is just choose your backup policy, then go to lifecycle management, exactly what we just discussed. And when I turn on that I want to use the storage repository, remember I have the option to choose an S3 bucket, but I can also choose to archive into Azure storage. So what I could do is I could perform my regular backups, I could perform my regular archives, still stay within AWS, but maybe my weeklies, my monthlies, I'm going to put them safe and secure into Azure. By the way, that's also a very attractive storage tier in Azure as well. And then if I needed to, that's another thing that you can do with AWS Backup and Recovery. You could even recover the volumes from AWS within Azure if you really had to. So that's an option as well. So there you have it. Archiving your snapshots is like switching from Starbucks to making coffee at home. Still gets the job done, but with way more savings, and the caffeine is optional. You've got your backups living their best life in the archives, saving money, helping with disaster recovery, and even getting a little extra security by playing nice with Azure. I think at that point we can say, go forth, archive, and watch your cloud costs shrink faster than a pizza at a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle party.
Thanks, Sebastian. Let me share my screen. Okie doke. Right. So basically, as I mentioned, we work with the customer and we kind of templatized what we've built. What you can see here is, you can put your account names here, which region, and then start putting, how many EC2s, how many gigs you have on those attached to those EC2s, SQL server sizes, RDS, Oracle, SQL Server, DynamoDB, S3 buckets, EFS, FSX. So obviously this is sample data, but as you can see here, there's a breakdown of all of the various tiers that are being used. Everything here that says N2W is kind of where our technology comes into play in terms of the cost savings. And obviously at the end of the day, the number came out as $47,000. Where if you would go with AWS Backup, would be almost more than twice. And here you can also adjust the region. So if there's any specific regions, like Singapore, for example, pricing is a little bit different. Maybe China as well. So you can play with this. And obviously, one important thing that you need to remember is the assumptions of your growth change. Okay, it can be 1%, 2%. Let's put 2% just for the sake of the demo. And as you can see, we kind of grew up here significantly on the cost. Basically, as I mentioned, we templatized this, and we will be sending this out in the thank you email or kind of the recording email. So feel free to use it for yourselves, and again, play around with it. It's pretty fun. I even got addicted to it, and I'm not the person that does that most often. Now, in addition, I wanted to mention everything that Sebastian said and showed here. If you want to have like a dedicated session with our SEs, you're welcome to reach out to us and we'll organize a session. We'll help you do the data lifecycle management. We'll give you some best practice tips on how to do this. So, feel free to reach out again, and we're going to do this with you. In November, we're going to do a new session. This time, it's not going to be dedicated on the product. We're going to talk about something slightly different. About a month and a half ago, Gartner announced their enterprise backup quadrants. And there's one significant thing that is missing there. It doesn't really talk about cloud native too much. And we're going to do a dedicated session to kind of fix Gartner's Magic Quadrant and talk about why we think that Gartner should be adding a quadrant that is just purely about cloud native. Stay tuned for that. This is coming in November. Lastly, just before we depart, we have the reInvent VIP contest that we're having right now. Basically, for our customers, what we're asking you guys to do is to refer somebody to us to go through a demo. And once they do go through the demo, your name is added to the raffle. And the more people you refer, the more chances you can get to win the VIP ticket to reInvent, which basically includes a limo pickup from the airport, staying at a 5-star hotel in Vegas, having a VIP dinner with us, and of course a lot of swag that we'll throw at you when you come visit our booth. And yeah, with that, Sebastian, I want to say thank you so much for the session.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Everybody could join, and see you next month. Bye-bye.
Bye.